Joining me now is Larry Sprung, founder of Mitlin Financial and author of the book Financial Planning Made Personal. Larry, thank you for joining us in studio.
Thanks for having me.
What would you say is the best way to prepare for taxes this year?
The best way is to be prepared. Get everything in order. Get your 1099s, your W-2s, anything that would affect your taxes, capital gain. Get it organized, prepared, and ready, and that'll put you in the best path for success.
I mean, some people have more complicated taxes than others, right? How would you say, what time frame should they start preparing with all of this documentation and getting it together?
So I know we're in February, but really I would say starting at the end of the previous year to start getting your ducks in a row in terms of what am I going to need for the coming year? What documents do I need to look out for? And start preparing for that early. If you haven't yet, then you should be starting today to make sure that you have all the documentation you need and be prepared to get it to the accountant on time. So if you want to file by April 15th, you can.
And as I alluded to, there are some Americans that have more complicated taxes than others, especially when it comes to cryptocurrencies or other digital assets. So how would you suggest they go about preparing? Is there anything different?
So, I mean, cryptocurrency is a little bit unique, right? Because in terms of people are not really aware in certain regards that they have to track those transactions just like they would their stocks and bonds purchases. There's capital gains owed if they sell cryptocurrency during the year, also if they use it to make a purchase. So they have to make sure that they have accurate records of what was bought, what was sold, and any capital gains or losses throughout the year, because their accountant is surely going to want that information.
But how can Americans take full advantage of retirement savings before the deadline?
So you have till April 15th to make any type of IRA contribution. So the earlier you can get into your accountant, a tax professional, or do your own taxes and figure out what your tax situation is, what I would say is take a look. Maybe an IRA contribution would be ideal for you this year in order to lessen that tax burden. If you're self-employed, look at simple or SEP IRAs to help lower your tax burden as well, because you do have until your tax filing deadline to take advantage of that. So there's still time to lower that tax burden if you want, and you can.
And what are some things Americans should keep in mind as they are filing their taxes, especially when it comes to triggering a potential audit?
So keep your records, keep accurate records of
Receipts.
Everything. Receipts, transactions, keep copies of your returns. You want to have as good a records as you possibly can, and make sure you're taking proper precautions in terms of the deductions you're taking and versus your income, right? A lot of people, like you said, more complicated tax returns, maybe you're itemizing, maybe you're not. A lot more people are taking standard deductions, so that makes things easier as well these days.
And we have a new administration this year, obviously. Does that impact the IRS's, timeline for Americans to receive their return after filing?
Timelines are the same. It seems though as the years go on, it takes longer. Like even if you're one of the first people to file, it's taking longer. But I will tell you, it's really on a first come, first served basis, meaning the earlier you do your return, if you are owed a refund, the earlier you are going to get that refund. So it really behooves you to file early if you're planning on getting a refund and you want or need it as soon as possible.
Now, we mentioned that obviously record keeping is hugely important, but what are some of the most common tax mistakes when it comes to the way Americans are filing?
I think one of the things is they're not keeping accurate records, maybe missing charitable deductions or medical expenses, things of that nature, as well as IRA contribution opportunities to lower taxes. I think lastly is people have this tendency to believe that if they're getting a refund, that it's because it's a good thing, and it's not necessarily. It just means you withheld more of your income throughout the year and you're getting that money back. So you may want to also check your withholdings for this year, because you might be able to lower them and not necessarily get a refund, but not owe as well next year.
And from your vantage point, how should investors approach tax planning to maximize or minimize deductions?
Yeah, so tax planning should be something that's not just reserved for when you're doing your tax return. It's something you should be addressing throughout the year and taking a look at what your tax situation looks like and seeing what tweaks you might need to make with regard to withholdings. maybe IRA, maybe increasing your 401k contributions in the middle of the year. So you really don't want to wait till the year is over. You want to make sure that you're tax planning throughout the year so that you're maximizing whatever you can take regarding taxes throughout the year.
What is the most common deductible that Americans miss when filing their taxes?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure offhand what it exactly is, but
Yeah.
I will tell you one thing that we see very often is with regard to capital gains, we find people are paying more in capital gains than they should in a lot of cases because they're not keeping accurate records of what their purchase price was versus their sale price. Or even more importantly, if they've inherited stock due to the death of a family member, they're not stepping up their basis in that security and they're losing that tax advantage of getting that step up, causing them to pay more in capital gains than they ordinarily would.
Well, thank you so much for all of that key insight. I know I was taking mental notes just hearing what you had to say. Thank you for joining us again. Larry Sprung, founder of Mitlin Financial.